Greetings from Waimak Bible Chapel. Okay, a bit of a different location here. My room is getting a bit too hot, so in my wife's study instead of mine. No standing still in the spiritual growth process. A believer is either progressing or regressing in their maturity at any given time. No status quo exists. So, Pilgrim's Progress, I've referred to before, moving forward, moving backwards. In our Christian walk, if we're standing still, we're stagnant. We are becoming like milkweed, would be an example. Exodus 15:22 to 25. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. But when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore its name was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" Sounds like us sometimes, doesn't it? Lord, bless me, Lord, bless me. A lot of charismatic church services. Lord, fill me, Lord, bless me, Lord, do this for me. And he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. When he had cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them. So, a tree was thrown into the bitter waters. It's a type of Christ on the cross. So sometimes we get into difficult situations and the Lord's testing us to see what our response will be. And if our response is just, "Lord, bless me, Lord, solve my problem," as opposed to, "Lord, what will you teach me from this situation? Lord, how can I glorify you in this situation?" then we might actually progress forward the way God intends for us to progress. Now, in verse 27, we see, "And they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters." So Elim is only 5 miles from Marah. So the Lord first led them to a place of testing before leading them to a place that met all their needs. Why? To grow their faith. So if you're going through rough times at the moment, maybe it's just to grow your faith. You know, it's this whole word of faith movement teaching that God only wants to bless you and God only wants to prosper you. So that's always talking about the physical. God's goal is to grow us spiritually. When we die, which we're all going to die, it's something we can't escape, when we die, the only thing we can take with us is the spiritual life that has grown on this earth. And obviously those that we've helped to lead to the Lord and the relationships we have created with other believers. All the relationships with non-believers will not exist anymore. And all the effort you put into the worldly possessions and your hobbies and your careers will not exist anymore. So the only thing that's going to exist is your relationship with others that love the Lord through you encouraging them or bringing them to the Lord, or your own spiritual progress. And that is something that we only get by moving forward. We don't get it by stagnating or going backwards. So, why to grow their faith? Philippians 4:11 to 13. So Philippians 4:11 to 13 says, "Not that I speak in respect of need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content with it. I know both how to be cast down and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." So, read that verse, that blows out of the water this idea that God is only there to bless us. God is only there to bless us physically, materially, which is what people teach in health and wealth. God is there to show us the way to grow and also to help us to show others how to come to Him and to grow. And sometimes when we go through affliction and suffering, it is for the very purpose of showing God's glory through us. And our response to our adversity quite often teaches people our true character. I know that sometimes I used to visit old people's homes and stuff when I had relatives in there. And it's interesting that the older some people get, the more sick and infirm they get, their nature either becomes more grumpy, more difficult, or more gracious and more sweet. So the true nature comes out. The veneer drops away. All right, so back to Exodus. Exodus 16, 2-3. And the whole congregation, this is after Elam, and the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, if only we had died by the hand of the Lord in Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So they're in Marah, and there's bitter water, and there's nothing to drink, and they're really thirsty. And then God solves the problem by making that water become sweet and able to be drunk. Then he takes them 5 miles down the road, and they find an oasis with 12 wells. So God's meeting their physical needs here. And then they go a bit further down the road. Now they're a bit hungry. And they can't see any immediate food around. So they're going, Lord, what are you doing to us? We're going to die. They've forgotten the previous experience. So sometimes God's got to take us through many times of that. So why do they grumble again? They grumble because they're worried. What is worry? Worry is just a lack of belief in God. So if you're worrying about the future, if you're worrying about things that maybe you don't understand or things you can't see a way out of, that's a lack of belief in God. So back to Philippians 4, 6-7, it says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. So what's going to guard our hearts and minds? Our peace in knowing that God's got it in control. We've got one other verse here. So 1 Peter 5:7, which is Philippians. It says here, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. So any worry we've got, any care we've got, it's something that we need to pass on to God. And it's not something that we need to take upon ourselves. And just be aware that adversity you're going through, sometimes it's there for a reason. It's there to show the glory of God through you. It's there to grow your faith. But we must understand that we need to keep moving forward. And the way to keep moving forward is to keep trusting God and to keep looking for the reasons and the opportunities in our situations where we can glorify God and show his glory through us. So just some brief thoughts. So no standing still in the spiritual growth process. And let's turn adversity into blessing. And let's turn the troubles that God gives us into opportunities to glorify him through us and to show others that our worry is not something that is going to drag us down, but we're going to place our trust in God and know that he has our hands and he understands the future.